Teachers, what obscenities have you accidentally uttered during class? A 7th grader was chilling and eating ice cream on a stick. I told her that if she was as passionate about the subject as about eating candies, she would be a top student in no time. She replied, "I wish I was graded on how well I could suck, not on my knowledge of history." To which I responded, "The teeth marks on your ice cream. You'd be kept for another year. Who's too lazy to read?" I made a blowjob joke during a presentation about suffragettes. I taught at uni. I was having a really bad day, didn't sleep at all for a couple days. I was in grad school and stressed a lot at the time. And here I was on autopilot, giving a lecture, when suddenly a late student flew into the hall and said, "I'm so sorry I'm late." Without a second's thought, I answer him, "Don't worry, I don't give a fuck." The students laughed, but I was very ashamed of the swearing afterward. Haha. I also once swore in front of students when one of them ran out of class with the bell. I accidentally said, "Fuck, where the fuck did Edwin go?" A couple students looked at me askew. But the thing is, I'm an English sign language teacher, so I don't think they were sure they understood me correctly. I'm an English teacher at a Japanese girls' school. One time I noticed one of my students drawing a huge shiny dick on her desk. To be honest, I was quite impressed. There was a majestic swollen cock, all proud and Venus. I think it takes a lot of talent and a lot of experience to draw like that. So I said, "Now go rub it, fast." I only realized what I had said when I turned my back and walked away. How hard was it to keep myself from bursting into laughter for the rest of the class? A few years ago, I did some lifeguard training in the classroom. We staged incidents with many victims, and there we were taught the triage system. That's when there are many victims and no time to help them all. According to this system, you divide everyone by color from green. Basically, a person is okay, to black, dead, or about to die. So I'm supposedly the first one to arrive at a mock accident. There are 4 people in a car. I open the door and see that the driver, a dark-skinned guy from our group, is lying on the steering wheel. I check for a pulse. The instructor says, "No pulse." I take over to get him out of the car to get to the guy in the back seat. Meanwhile, the instructor praises me. Right? He's black. We don't help him. Both me and the dark-skinned guy freeze for a second and turn to the instructor. The guy quickly realized what he just said, and we just fell about laughing. Everyone was laughing so hard that we had to stop the whole staging. I didn't say it, just accidentally brought it to class. Anyway, I'm a high school band teacher, and just to clarify a few things for the students about musical instruments, one day I brought my CD collection to school. At that time, everyone had them, and I gave them to children to listen to how differently the same piece could sound in different arrangements. I had classical music on the first pages of the catalog, and I had all the modern music at the end. But of course, I didn't bother to get all the smutty shit out of there before coming to school. So here's a little 6th grader flipping through pages of CDs while I'm picking at our classroom sound equipment. Suddenly, she touches my shoulder and asks, "Mr. Philosophic, what is this?" And she shows me a CD of my best friend's gore grind band, which depicts a naked woman taking the semen of several men on her face. I immediately took the disc away from her and muttered something about my aunt drinking a lot of milk and quickly changed the subject. I'm still in shock that no one found out about the incident. If she had told anyone, I would have been out of a job for sure. I once called a student of mine a prostitute. She took it normally, so there were no repercussions. In fact, I think she even agreed with me. Anyway, the point is, she was 16 and she started sleeping with guys left and right. And as soon as she started doing it, she realized she could demand something in return. When she told me this, I'm one of the few people at school that students can share something like this with. I accidentally gave out. That's what prostitutes do. Don't be like that. Then for the rest of the year, she'd come to me and say stuff like, "You'd be proud of me. I'm on my best behavior lately, or I'm dating this guy now." But we're not doing anything like that. It sounds like she was treating you like a parent and looking for your approval. Good thing you were there to guide her. A friend of mine tried to be that kind of teacher too, but then he stopped encouraging students to be frank with him because he found out he was contractually obligated to report a lot of things to the administration. Like if a student is thinking of trying substances, had a little too much to drink at the party, and so on. From 10th to 11th grade, we had a history teacher who was always giving out some pearls. One time he told us about strategy during World War I, hung a map of Europe on the blackboard, runs his hand along the edge and says, "And then the Germans came from behind and started pounding them," after which he had to stop abruptly, because the whole class started laughing. Or there was a moment the year before when he was talking about Mesopotamian farming, and said that they used mostly tools made of stone, because everybody loves big fat hoes. And in 2012, when everyone was waiting for the end of the world, Someone asked him if it would actually happen. He replied, unfortunately, according to Mayan calculations found in South America, yes, the world will end, but only if we do not sacrifice virgins. So, which one of you has time this weekend? I guess my answer might make it sound like the man was wildly creepy, but to me, he was a 10 out of 10 second coolest teacher of all time. No dirt, but the story is completely inappropriate for school. I used to have a stupid habit of answering all questions with occasional jokes. Since I'm a teacher, 99% of time I was able to filter them out. But one time I couldn't help myself and accidentally made a joke right at school. Anyway, I had a leather jacket that I wore all the way through. One time I came to school not wearing it, and one of the students asked, "Hey mister, where's your jacket?" And I, without thinking, said what I would say to anybody who asked me where the thing X is. Sold it to get enough to buy dope. And I immediately realized how screwed up I was, so I went straight to work. A little later, another teacher I was working with told me, "You know, a student reported to me that you told him you sold your jacket for drugs. You're lucky I know you would never say something like that." I continued to do the paperwork and didn't answer him in any way. I'm sure there were other moments, but this one in particular stuck out to me somehow. Accidentally wrote Dick on the board. How'd you have to do that? Well, he just wrote Dick, and then it all went to hell. And then it all went to dicks. Dude. My German teacher once wrote on the board the word Scheibe, meaning disc or record. I went up to him, erased B, and finished it with B to make it shit. The class laughed and I was pleased with myself. Luckily, our teacher was too cool to scold for such a thing. I swear he hated you. I'm not a teacher myself, but there's a story about my high school teacher. First, a couple words about what kind of person he was. Basically, he was the kind of awesome teacher you only get once in your life. Let's call him Coach C. This was a huge man, former NFL linebacker, then coached a high school soccer team, but not very successfully. And he shared a locker room with our running coach, where we all crossed paths before class. And so, one time before a running practice, me and the boys are sitting in the locker room, and in the next room is sitting Coach C and waiting for the running coach. Suddenly, one dude from the cross-country team flies in late and, not knowing that the coach is sitting in the next room, starts complaining about how he bought skinny jeans. He was saying something like, "Geez, I need to get out of these pants somehow. They are super tight, especially around the hips." I was walking down the hallway now and feared that everyone seeing my, well, you realized. And then, from the other end of the room comes a Coach C's scream, "Labia!" We had a good laugh that day. We almost blew off practice afterward because of it, because no one could not take anything seriously that day. A couple years after graduation, I met this same teacher in a bar, and we just got drunk off our asses. Best teacher I ever had. I'm not a teacher, and it's not that obscene, but still. Anyway, we lived in a Navy town, and one day in 7th grade math class, the teacher says, "Wow, we have so many birthdays this summer." Apparently the fall of 87th, when the ships arrived, was particularly cool. But she immediately realized what she had said, and burning with shame, began to apologize profusely to everyone. I rather did something naughty than said. Rubbed my nipples right in class. I teach science, and that time I was telling the students about how scientists accustom young rats to different odors by applying those very odors to the nipples of the mother rat during the period of lactation. At this point, I involuntarily touched my nipples with my fingers and began to make circular motions. If you know the context, of course, it doesn't sound like something heading for a scandal, but I wanted to fall through the ground at that moment. Only I had to fight the temptation to touch my nipples while reading. When you're a man, it's nothing. If I did that, my 7th graders would go crazy. Taught freshman chemistry. One time a student dropped a vial of hydrochloric acid right on my pants. I reacted immediately. Fucking great. The students laughed and the dean's office didn't kick my ass. What was the molarity there? 1 mole. Didn't do any harm, I just reacted that way. Reacted. Got the joke. After we finished working on the play on Romeo and Juliet, our language arts teacher put us a movie version of Romeo and Juliet. In the version she put on, there's a scene where Romeo and Juliet are doing this, and then Romeo's naked ass appears in the frame. In all previous years, the teacher would walk over to the TV at this moment and cover it with her folder for a few seconds. But with my class, it was a little different. After all, this was the first year the class had a smartboard. So here she is, covering the part where Romeo's ass is supposed to show up. And then panic like hell, because now his ass was showing on her folder. We were put on an older version with that scene where Juliet's breasts are bare. The teacher wanted to fast forward it, but instead she accidentally pressed pause on that very spot. The boys in the class were pleased. Thank you very much for watching. In the comments below the video, write your similar stories and don't forget to watch our other videos. Goodbye.